Hello, my darlings, and welcome to an all-new episode of After Dark Fairy Tales. I have a new episode for you guys, and this one is by the one and only Daniel R. Hayes. Now, I know that most of you guys know who Daniel Hayes is. He's the creator of the wonderful Hothead series, and I've also narrated other fantastic stories from Daniel. This one is a new one titled Goodnight Sweetheart. So I'm going to narrate this one to you all, and you guys let me know what you think about it in the comments. I read this one, and I thought it was very creepy, and I enjoyed it. So, I'm glad to be back again with you guys. I'm glad to share new stories from very talented authors, and I hope you guys enjoy this new fairy tale just as much as I did. So, are my darlings ready to find out what Goodnight Sweetheart is all about? That sounded corny, didn't it? But anyway, here we go. Goodnight Sweetheart by Daniel Hayes. Thanks a lot, Jason said, staring at his father's grave. You left us here all alone without saying goodbye. Amy stooped with a white handkerchief to wipe her son's gooey nose and fresh tears from his face. Jason was only 8 years old and didn't fully understand the reality of death. It affects everyone differently, you see, and no one can really prepare themselves for the unsettling truth that we are not immortal. One day, everything was fine. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and all was right in the world, until a sudden emergency call from work changed everything. Jason's father, Pat, was a pediatrician, fresh out of medical school, and was eager to start his own practice. A special needs child needed medical attention, and Pat was the only one who could get through to the little girl. In his rush to the hospital, a head-on collision with an 18-wheeler claimed his life, leaving his wife Amy and son Jason alone. The sun faded, the birds stopped chirping, and their world darkened. A cool breeze blew through the Pinewood Cemetery, so Amy pulled Jason's coat snugly around his slender body and zipped his red jacket. She also tucked Jason's black beanie hat down over his brown hair so his ears wouldn't freeze. A cold chill raced through the fringes of Amy's soul, and she swaddled herself in her black fleece coat. Amy's curly brown hair whipped in the wind as she uttered, "Sweetheart, your father's death was an accident." Jason looked at her with tears in his eyes. "Even though your father isn't with us anymore, he lives on in our hearts and memories. I believe he watches over us still." She wondered if her words would bring comfort. Jason rubbed his nose and smeared a snot bubble on his jacket, much to Amy's chagrin. "But how do you know that, Mom?" "It's not something you know, but something that you feel." With teeth chattering, she moaned, "Come on, let's go home." Silence plagued the drive home, as both occupants were lost in thought. Pat died a month ago, and yet his cologne still lingered in the Chevy Cruze. The trees were dancing shadows, galloping along the highway, and the white lights from passing cars reminded Amy that she was still alive. Jason needed her now more than ever, and she had to rise to meet his demands despite their devastating loss. Before pulling into the driveway, Amy stopped to check the mail and found nothing but past due bills and termination notices. With a deep breath, she pulled into the garage and put the Chevy in park. "Jason, honey, why don't you go in? I'll be right behind you." "Okay, Mom." Amy watched as Jason's little legs carried him inside, and then she broke down in her solitude. The loss of Pat left a devastating hole in their finances, and even though he had a modest life insurance policy, it wasn't enough. Pat was young and didn't think he needed a big safety net until he got older, a common mistake that his family now had to pay for in earnest. Collecting herself, Amy went inside and made a small dinner while Jason watched cartoons. The meal was satisfying, but the conversation was lacking, much like the drive home. Amy wasn't sure what to say to Jason. It took everything she had to hold herself together. The thought that she needed to do better gnawed at her mind like a hungry parasite. The evening flew by like time was on fast forward, and before Amy knew it, bedtime was calling. The nighttime routine took over, and Amy made sure that Jason had his bath, put on clean pajamas, and brushed his teeth. She tucked him in with a kiss on the head and retreated to her bedroom. Jason's room was filled with who's who of superheroes, posters, action figures, curtains, bed sheets, and more decorated his luxurious bedroom. His father would always read him a bedtime story, but now only cold, vigilante eyes stared at Jason through the twilight of a Superman nightlight. There's something special and safe about hiding yourself in covers. The warmth acts as a shield, protecting you from the naked openness of the world around you. It feels like nothing can harm you in your comfortable safety net, and slowly but surely you sail away on a boat of drowsiness to a sea of dreams. Jason pulled the covers up over his head and twisted his body into a catacomb of endless positions until he was comfortable. His thoughts carried him to the loving embrace of his father on a warm summer day. It wasn't a dream, but a vision of a past memory that Jason was sure would never fade from his mind. How sweet and delicious. Jason's eyes snapped open. The strange voice sounded like a feline, having its vocal cords stretched to the point of breaking. Was it real, or my mind playing tricks? Imagination running wild? Jason had to know. He slowly cradled the top of his covers with his tiny, trembling hands and took a deep breath. Pulse racing, heart pounding, stomach clenching, Jason sat up and slammed the sheets down with authority. The only thing he saw was the soft glow of Superman's light. Nothing was disturbed in his room, so it must have been a weird Jedi mind trick. Jason took a deep breath and buried himself once more. With his head covered and his eyes closed, Jason didn't notice a bright golden light emanating from the closet. The white door pulsated like a living heartbeat and thrived like a savage beast. From the foot of Jason's bed, an unknown presence burrowed underneath his sheets. Jason was lying on his right side with his knees tucked into his chest. He heard the sound of fabric being torn and opened his eyes. His slender body trembled, knowing that something was in bed with him. He didn't move, hoping that whatever this thing was would leave him alone. Inch by inch, It was getting closer. Jason's skin wanted to jump off his bones and run. But curiosity got the better of him. He slowly lifted the sheets to allow a tiny sliver of light to shine in. Right beneath his feet, Jason saw a pale, white hand with purple blotches and razor-sharp black fingernails crawling towards him like a spider in the night. This was no dream. Jason screamed and exploded from his bed like a lit fuse. He raced down the hallway to the safety of his mother's bedroom, where she was trying to figure out how to pay all the bills. "It's in my bed." Amy could hear the terror in her son's voice as he jumped on the bed and snuggled up to her. "Are you all right? What's in your bed?" With a stuttering voice, Jason replied, "Something evil." Amy gave him a warm, tender hug and said, "There's nothing to worry about. Wait here, and I'll go check it out for you." "No, don't go, Mommy. It will get you." Amy put on a brave face and declared, "Nothing is going to get me. I'm just going to check your room, and then you can go back to sleep." Jason was very apprehensive about Amy going into his bedroom. He grabbed his mom's big fluffy pillow and hugged it for dear life. Amy marched down the hallway, knowing she didn't need this right now. What she needed was a game plan to ensure that everything was going to be all right. Amy was grieving, stressed out, tired, and depressed, but she promised herself that she would do better for Jason. Amy left no stone unturned in searching Jason's bedroom. There was nothing under the bed, in the closet, or in the dark corners. She even checked behind the Avengers curtains to ensure the room was free and clear from any spooky ghost. "Jason, come here, please," she yelled. A few seconds later, Jason reluctantly poked his head through the doorway. "Come in here, kiddo," demanded Amy. "I've checked this entire room from top to bottom, and I promise there is nothing here. You must have had a nightmare. Did you check the bed?" "Yes, there's nothing under your bed." "No, Mom, it's in my bed," Jason shouted. Amy threw off the covers to reveal nothing. "You see? There are no monsters here," she said with a warm smile. "Now come here and go back to sleep." "But Mom," "No buts. It's been a long day, and we need to get some rest." Jason took a step back, perhaps to run, but Amy scooped him up and placed him back in his bed. Despite his moans of protest, Amy tucked him in and kissed his forehead. "Try not to think about it, okay? Good night, sweetheart." Jason didn't utter a word. He knew there was no use trying to fight it. Jason stared at the ceiling for what seemed like hours until his little eyes glazed over. Jason's thoughts carried him away to dreamland, where he was flying through the air like Iron Man. He was soaring over the ocean, twisting and turning everywhere. The dream was so vivid that his toes felt wet. In fact, they were wet. Startled, Jason's eyes popped open, and he instinctively wiggled his toes. His little digits felt slimy and moist, and then suddenly, Jason felt a pair of plump, juicy lips kiss his big toe. He recoiled at the sensation and held his breath for fear of disturbing the creature. Then, a long tongue licked its way in between each toe, and Jason couldn't take it anymore. His heart was beating heavy, and tears welled up in his eyes. How juicy and sweet. Jason withdrew his feet and sprang from the bed. Before running away, he wanted to see what this thing was. He stared at the enormous lump hiding beneath the covers and yelled, "Show yourself!" The mound beneath the sheets stirred, revealing a hideous, humped-back monster dressed in a crimson steampunk gothic jacket with black leather pants. It had spiky pink hair, pale white skin with purple blotches, long inky fingernails with matching lips, and yellow eyes. The creature had hooves for feet and an elongated face with a big pointy chin and nose that looked more like a wolf's face than a human. 2 sets of sharp teeth could be seen within its maw, and a dark, serpent-like tongue darted in and out. "Come here, my lovely," Jason screamed and peed his pants. The demon sniffed the air and shuffled towards him. Its bones creaked and popped with every movement. "Nasty little boy, I smell a juicy treat." "Ah!" Jason found enough courage to flee. His only refuge was the bathroom, for which he made haste. Jason didn't think he could make it to his mother's room this time. He slammed the door and locked it swiftly, but he could still hear the popping and snapping of bones as the monster came closer. Jason jumped in the bathtub and cradled himself into the fetal position. "Jason, is that you?" His mother's voice rang loud and clear, but Jason didn't say a word for fear of giving away his position. Amy rushed to Jason's room and found it empty. "He must be in the bathroom," she thought under heavy breath. She sat down on Jason's bed to wait for him. Amy didn't notice the enormous lump forming behind her. The creature ripped through the mattress, grabbed Amy, and pulled her through. It happened so fast that Amy didn't even have time to scream. Meanwhile, Jason's soft whimpers could be heard echoing in the bathroom. He no longer heard his mother's voice and was worried. He took a few calming breaths and crawled out of the tub. Jason quietly opened the door and crept into his room with padded feet, where he last heard his mother's voice. The space was empty aside from the torn bed and golden light shining beneath the closet door. At that moment, Jason knew what he needed to do. It was time to face his fears. "Don't worry, Mom. I'm coming to save you." Shielded his eyes, Jason pulled open the closet door and ran in like a true superhero. As the light cleared, Jason saw a stone pathway that curved its way around a million different doors, like a coiled serpent. Beneath the walkway, there was nothing but cold emptiness. There was no turning back now. Jason followed the spiral trackway up to its final resting place, where the hunchback demon sat on a throne of skulls. His mother, Amy, was hog-tied and gagged with a red apple. Her eyes flooded with tears as she noticed Jason approaching. The creature was busy counting gold coins from his treasure chest and didn't notice Jason creeping up the pathway. The trunk grew brighter with every coin the monster threw in, and Jason finally understood where the golden light came from. Stealthily, Jason made his way to his mother, who was curled up beside the skull throne, and untied her. He grabbed her hand and pulled her away from the evil monstrosity. The demon was still busy going through his chest and didn't notice them crawling away. Jason and Amy managed to trudge a few feet before they heard the creature's ghastly voice. I smell you coming from a mile away, my delicious, juicy, golden treat. Jason turned in defiance. What do you want with us? I've tasted your flesh, the demon said, quivering. So fresh, so juicy, so ripe. With bones cracking, the creature rose from his throne and gently placed the treasure chest down. I couldn't get you in the bathroom, but I knew if I had your mother, eventually you would come for her. The monster opened its maw like a hungry shark and bragged, I was right. Oh, joyous me. And I must admit, there's nothing like fast food. Now, run. Amy grabbed Jason's arm and pleaded, Come on, Jason, we can outrun him. Together, Jason and Amy ran down the narrow, twisted path as the creature chased them on all fours like a ravenous hellhound. The popping sounds of bones cracking urged them along. They had to be careful because with one wrong step, they could fall forever, lost to time itself. Jason's closet door was coming into view, and Amy couldn't be happier to see her son's poster of Batman holding a thumbs up. They were almost there. Jason ran as hard as his tiny legs would allow, but Amy was much faster than he was. Pulling Jason along, he couldn't keep up and tripped. Amy's momentum carried her further down the path before realizing Jason wasn't with her. She came to a rageful stop and turned to see the hunchback creature straddling Jason's prone body with its mouth wide open, ready to feast. Jason screamed, I can't fail my son now. He needs me. Get away from him, she shouted. Instinctively, Amy was already sprinting towards the hellish demon with fire in her eyes. She didn't care what happened to her, but she was going to save her son. The monster licked Jason's face and uttered, Tasty, tasty, yummies. Amy was only inches away from saving Jason when something grabbed the demon from behind and tossed it up the path. Amy and Jason couldn't believe what they were seeing. It was Pat, Jason's father, and Amy's husband. Pat was glowing in a white light and smiled warmly at them. He acknowledged them with a firm nod and yelled, I love you both. Now run. The demon sprang forth and locked horns with Pat. You cannot save them. Pat and the creature fought in a deadly dance of survival, which provided the necessary distraction for Amy and Jason to escape. Amy opened the closet door and pulled Jason, but it was no use. The boy didn't want to leave his father behind. Amy wrapped her arms around her son and tugged with all her might. Come on, Jason. We can't stay here. Please come with me, she pleaded. Jason saw his father glance his way as the beast gnawed at his side. Pat gave his son a reassuring wink as if to say that it was all right to leave. Jason cried and nodded his head. He succumbed to his mother's will and allowed her to pull him back into his bedroom. Before the closet door slammed shut, Amy and Jason watched as Pat threw the monster down once more and merged his spirit with the evil entity. No! What are you doing to me? I need to feast on that boy's juicy flesh. That's my boy you're talking about, and you will never hurt him or anyone else ever again, Pat bellowed. Just then, the hunchback demon trembled and convulsed until it exploded into a million bits and pieces, leaving nothing behind but Pat's spirit smiling at his family. The door slammed itself shut, and Amy held her crying son until they drifted off to sleep. They awoke to a bright golden light, thinking that the creature had returned, but as their eyes adjusted, they saw Pat holding the demon's treasure chest. He placed a trunk full of gold coins at their feet and grinned. "That monster won't bother you anymore, son. I'm sorry I had to leave you both, but it was my turn for heaven to call my name." Jason and Amy rose and wrapped him in a loving embrace. "I want you both to know that I'll love you forever and ever, and I will always watch over you." Pat faded into the light, allowing Amy and Jason to hug each other. They were overwhelmed with emotion, but they knew everything was going to be all right. The end. Well, did you guys like that one? I hope you did. I thought that was a crazy story, and I'm glad that Daniel wanted me to narrate it, and I'm glad I was able to share it with my darlings. So, you all let me know what you thought about this one in the comments. And to check out Daniel's story, I posted the link to it. It was first published on Reedsy, and you guys can check it out. Just click on the link below and check out Daniel's other stories as well. He has a great array of different stories on his page, and I think they deserve some attention. But I really like this one, and I hope you guys did too. Daniel's very talented, and I'm glad I was able to narrate it and bring it to life. I hope I did with my narration. Hope I didn't flub anything or mess up no names and nothing like that. But anyway, enough blabbing. I'll be back next week with another After Dark fairy tale for you guys. And I hope all of you enjoyed my narration. But most importantly, I hope y'all enjoyed the story and all the stories that I narrate. And once again, I'll be back again. And I love you guys. Thank you for your support and subscribing. If anyone new comes here and you just now hearing me, I hope you join too. But until next time, I'll be back with a new one. And until then, good night, my darlings.